Hello, what's going on YouTube? It is Ninja Turtle and Ninja Turtle Customs, and I'm finally back with a new custom made action figure Marvel Legends. I do want to apologize greatly because I feel like it's been an eternity since I've made a new video. I've actually been working on customs still, but things did slow down for me a little bit. I was also occupied with a lot of personal things. But yes, so one thing before I go deeper into this Miss Marvel, like I said, I've been working on customs and I plan on making a video kind of doing like a month in sort of thing every month of customs that I worked on that are kind of small changes to an existing figure, nothing really major, not worth its own dedicated video type stuff. Also, maybe some customs that I consider failures that I don't want to make a video on. I'll just kind of throw it all together as like a mishmash, a compilation or what have you type of video. And I'll just do that once a month. So I'm going to work on that probably after I finish posting this, and then it'll be like a month end sort of thing. So that will be coming very soon. Anyway, we have this latest completed custom of my original Carol Danvers Miss Marvel costume, and there's a lot that went into it. It is rather simple, but there's some more intricate things that I'd like to go over. So this video might take a little bit longer to explain than others, but for the most part it's still fairly simple. But as always, my idea, I will show you what I did, but not directly. I will just kind of walk through it with you for what it's worth and give you all the references, what parts that I use. So if you know how to make customs, then this will just be kind of like a guide, as opposed to if you don't know how to make customs, showing you exactly what I did. So if you don't know what you're doing, if you're trying to make your own customs, you want to make this yourself, there are plenty of resources on YouTube, because I use those same resources to show you how to make your own custom. So I'm not going to do all of the exact things, but all the specifics and things that are specific to this figure, I will let you know about. So we're going to start, as always, from the bottom to the top on what I did. All right, starting at the bottom, the feet, the shoes. There are the basic shoes almost every female Marvel Legend has. They're nothing special about them at all. They're just flats that are converted into boots. So starting here, all of this blue, on the shoe, and then blue on the leg, that's just straight bare leg, and then this red ring going around, that's going to formulate the boot. That is epoxy sculpt, so I sculpted that detail in, and it goes all the way around, so it's going to simulate being the boot. So that's red, and then the blue. Again, these are the same legs, and in fact these are the legs that are from this Blink figure. So if you have a Blink, or I usually use a lot of Blinks for a lot of my customs, in particular one because these are the fuller, bigger legs that pop on and off, which again, I say this in all my customs, I use these legs almost exclusively. These types of legs that pop on and off, these are the bigger ones. And then you have the bodysuit legs like on Black Widow, Black Cat, they're a little slimmer. And then the teenage legs are popping off, those are a little shorter. So, but these are the fuller legs, same exact legs, just painted flesh tone. And I'll start with the blue of choice, because this is the same blue that I use on the entire figure. We got Model Masters, what is it called? True Pearl Blue. Now, I did use this blue, and it is something I didn't notice right away, even though it's literally in the title of the blue. It's called Pearl, so it has a pearlescent sheen to it, which is not something I wanted, but something that I didn't realize until after painting this, and also my next upcoming custom that I will be making a video on shortly. It was when I was doing that custom, because I was doing them simultaneously, that I noticed the pearlescent sheen to it. Now I would have loved for, here's the Captain Marvel, I would have loved for this blue to be this dark blue like this is. That's what I was hoping that this would turn out to be. But as far as the blue colors that are available to me of this brand, they don't have that available at Hobby Lobby that is this dark. So I would have had to have mixed it. with a little bit of black, which is something I learned doing while making this, but didn't care to actually go as far to actually do it. So the next time I need to have a blue that is this dark, or my desire to have a blue this dark, I will mix the paint. But because I didn't want to mix the paint with this custom, I didn't. So I still don't mind the way it looks. I do like that this blue that it is, and it does work. I mean, one of the reasons why I like this blue is because later on in her costume history, like, or future costumes, although this one is still quite dark, I'm actually going to remake this one, by the way, and I'm going to make it more blue than this dark that this is. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm okay with it being exactly like that. But for the most part, it's still a little bit more blue than I wanted it to be, but it's still fine. As far as the flesh tone goes, actually no, let's start with the red. The red is also, again, I use Model Masters on the entire body stuff. So the red in particular is called Guards Red. It's probably not going to show up, but it's called Guards Red. And that is probably, at least I think, the most red, straight up red color that they have available. They have multiple shades of red, and this is, I just wanted it to be super red. So that is the red that's on the boots, the top of the boots, as well as around the torso, the arms, and that's it. Just going around the back and then the arms, it is all Guards Red. And then with the flesh tone, once again, also Model Masters, they have two flesh tones. So they have this warm and then have the light colors, and the warm is such a strong color. It's like super warm. It looks honestly terrible if you were just to paint someone with just warm. They would look like sunburnt, but it does help giving a nice pink hue. So I generally leaned with using more of the light when doing a Caucasian character, more light and then a little bit of warm tone, and then from there figure out how light or how tan or how pink, I should say, I want the character to be. So for Carol, I went very little bit of the warm tone and a lot of the light. And initially, my first coat, she was actually more pink than this. And in retrospect, once again, kind of looking at how pink this one is, how naturally this plastic is, I kind of wish I went a little bit more pink. I mean, you can look at her face compared to the leg. Oh, well, there you go, the body. Compared to the leg, she's a little bit more pink than what I painted. But again, I'm going to remake this, so it doesn't really matter what she looks like now, because it's not going to stay that way. Either way, but yeah, that's what I did. That's to each his own, however you want your Caucasian characters to look. I'm not going to do every Caucasian character of this particular makeup or mix of colors. Some will be more pink, some will be lighter, and you'll see that as I continue to make my customs. Going back to this, the open stomach is a choice that I made, although she does have an original costume that is exactly this. There are also ones where her stomach is red, so it's like a full shirt as opposed to her stomach being out. But then there's also just versions of her being fully clothed or having thigh-high boots instead of having short boots. And it just depends. Usually it's more of a censorship sort of thing. Not that they're being censored, but they want to water down the look for kids, typically. Having the boots up high so she's showing less leg, covering up the stomach so it can be shown on kids' TV and then not be some sort of sexually, charged type of appeal or thing like that. But in the comic books, she wore this exact costume, and then she also had one with the stomach covered up. So I went with this in particular. Now, as far as the torso, again, since all the blue is the same pearl blue, true blue pearl. It's everywhere on the boots, the whatever you want to call that, underwear or outerwear, the hands and the rest of the glove, and then all across the upper torso and shoulders. It's all the same blue. the outerwear or whatever here, her bottoms, all of that is sculpted, epoxy sculpt on there. So that is just cut to shape, you know, epoxy sculpt and cut to shape and let it dry. And you see I gave a little bit of cheek there, not too much, not a whole lot, but still pretty nice. Nice to see. Now you can see that I do have a lot of rock right here. That is mostly just because of the torso that I use. And I don't think it has anything to do, because her legs are pretty strong. It's a good strong base. So let's get into that. The torso in particular is actually from this Dazzler figure, not the same one obviously, but it came from this Dazzler figure. So it started off as this white torso. I added the epoxy sculpt, and then there's actually a little bit of sculpt going up where the shirt starts, in between the stomach and where the shirt starts. I just threw some there. So one thing that I'm going to start doing a little bit more, and I started with this figure, is kind of like a halfway, you know, decision, and I was going to start using less epoxy sculpt when making my figures, because normally, or previously, I would have sculpted this entire, you know, bottom part and then put epoxy sculpt all across the back just to have this open area, but all of the rest would be epoxy sculpt. And then I would have put epoxy sculpt either around on the chest or on the top of here, and then I would have done the shoulder blades and all that, just to show the separation of the colors. Would have been epoxy sculpt. But as I was doing the shoulders, I was like, no, I don't want to put sculpt there. It's gonna rub against the plastic, it's going to make it thicker, it's going to make it hard to expand when needing to put, you know, the hands in, especially on the gloves, because I would have put some all around the glove there too, but I didn't want to do that. So I ended up, like, let's start with the glove here. I only put a small, like, band of epoxy sculpt where the glove starts, so it's like a thicker sleeve there, and then everything else is just the normal arm and is painted blue. And then same thing here, and then no epoxy sculpt across the chest. Now the lower torso again came from this Dazzler. I guess the figure that I used just had this little bar that's in there that connects the legs. I guess it's just loose. It was just a loose one, so I ended up getting one that just ended up being loose, and it has this rock. This, it's really not the legs, it's just the bar that's loose there that causes all of this, you know, freedom in there. So yeah, she got a balance there. So what I might do, I'm still kind of reluctant in it, but I still might take the legs back off, because again they pop off just like a Build-A-Figure. That's the whole idea. But they pop off, so I can take the legs off and get right into there, into that piece, and then I'm going to put some Mod Podge there, and basically that's glue, and hope that it will dry and stick and solidify and won't have this be an issue going forward. It's not a major priority to me. It still works, but it's still something I'd like to fix. Now, while I have Dazzler up here, obviously you can see that I use the same hair, but I also use the same head. So this is actually the exact same head and hair from this Dazzler figure, and I repainted the hair. So let's get into that paint. Alright, so as far as the hair goes, I took out as much paint that's on the initial hair as possible. There's really not that much of a paint coming off of it, but I did take that off using a nail polish remover, 100% acetone, just like you would do on the body if you needed to remove paint. And then there was 2 layers of paint on this. So the first layer was just, you have to forgive that I have had a little spill of primer all over my bag that carries all my paint. But this is Angelus yellow acrylic leather paint, and then the same brand, just white. I did that as a first base layer, and initially I was going for a platinum blonde kind of look. It looks really ugly in that first coat. It looked really ugly, so I did a second coat, and then it's basically the same thing, but then I added brown to it. So just like a drop of brown, a little bit more yellow than a drop of yellow, and then a bunch of white to counteract how deep and dark the brown is going to make it, because I ended up making more dirty blonde hair than I did platinum blonde hair. I still don't love it, but it doesn't look so bad on camera, and it doesn't look so bad from a distance, but up close I kind of looks gross to me. But that's just, again, like, I could be just nitpicky on the hair color. Not sure yet. Okay, so now let's talk about the upper torso, in particular the chest detail, and there's a lot going on there. So this is where the long-winded explanation comes from. So let's start with the actual symbol, the sun or light or whatever you want to call that. That is all epoxy sculpt. I sculpted that in there, and I wanted to not use a type of chest like Blink would have, where it's more like a cloth sort of thing, or somebody like Polaris or Lady Invisible Woman that have a cloth type. I wanted to have the breasts be individually cupped so that it goes down in there, but the sculpt itself is thick enough where it kind of lifts and it looks like it's part of the cloth. But yeah, it's totally sculpted in there. And then the color for that in particular is another model master. It is the Turn Signal Amber. So yeah, you're not going to see that very well, but Turn Signal Amber is this color that's in there. There's like there's 3 yellows that I have. I'm pretty sure they make more, but there's 3 that I have, and this was the first time I've ever used this yellow. I think it looks fine. I like it plenty good. It works with her whole motif. Again, same red, same yellows. There's no epoxy sculpt in there whatsoever. It's just all me being patient with myself with this line, making sure that it's even and just looking good. Being very careful, going over it slowly, starting the point of the red at the same point on each side of the star, and then yeah, that's that. So this upper torso itself, though, it comes from a female beetle, and that is a long explanation. Again, let me go into that. Let's get this set up for her. Female beetle is right here. And so yeah, this is the same upper torso, not the same lower torso. Now, these are actually the same lower torso, but the beetle has this, the plastic things going off of there. I'm actually using that lower torso on a future custom, but without the plastic pieces coming out. I sanded those down, but that's not the same one here. Again, this is from Dazzler, but essentially they're the same. This has a more of a cloth sort of feel to it. It's got these lines here. Same thing on the back. It does have like a cloth effect with this little spine part as well. But again, that's going to be on a different custom coming up within the next couple months probably. But the upper torso is this one. So I did, just like I said down here, the corset part of this needed to be sanded off. So I took my Dremel and I did sand that off, and like the straps off the sides. You might be able to see that if you have an eagle eye, just some remnants of it, but I did my best to sand off the straps. And then same thing with these straps here, sanded those down. So this is the breast is, like it's a natural breast without any corset on there. Did my best on that. But why this one over just using, say, Lady Deadpool? Because Lady Deadpool or Shikla have the same body, and I use that usually for any other customs that I would do. So yeah, most customs, if I wanted to have a woman with this type of breast shape on their figure, on the figure, I would use Lady Deadpool or Shikla. But in particular, I used one female beetle because it was on clearance. These things were everywhere. If you are a collector, you probably know that you can see these over the last few years at almost every Target, Walmart, Meijer, whatever. But they were on clearance at Target over the last couple months, and I got them for dirt cheap. So there's that. Make use of them. Two, I think and it could be just me and a visual thing, but I honestly think that either these breasts look bigger compared to these, or when they sculpted them, they're actually the same size, but these are in a corset, and therefore they're pushed in more, they're boosted up more, so they have the appearance of being bigger compared to these are more naturally set, quote unquote natural set. But for me, I think these look bigger, so I want it bigger on Carol. She's always had a pretty sizable chest, at least for me, in my perspective, on the comics that I've seen and I've read. She's always been a very curvy and large busted woman. So I want it not necessarily to have this body mold. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. We're going to get back into this later. But these are absolutely bigger by far than all of them. But I didn't want this body. But again, we'll get back to that in a second. So having something that's readily available, hint hint, is the chest on female beetle. She's a very cheap body. She's a very underused body. But one issue with using that, even after putting all of that work into sanding off the straps and sanding off the top of the corset and so on, there's actually two things you have to worry about with using this if you're going to use it as a custom for your future things. And obviously it's female beetle. She had wings in the back, so Carol doesn't have that. And yes, I use the exact same torso. So I heated this up and then took an X-Acto knife and cut off these little ports, and they're available. I think I put that on the wasp figure that I made. You can see that video on my channel. So those are the little ports on that wasp figure. The custom wasp came from the female beetle that I customized to use on Miss Marvel. So Miss Marvel does not have those holes in her back. You can see maybe some of the sanding that I did back there. It doesn't look too bad. I actually just did another figure that had wings. Basically it's the retro wasp. I just took her wings off and cut off her back ports on the retro wasp, and it looks completely different. There's actually deeper holes that go into the body of the figure as opposed to just being on the surface like this one. But that custom is coming soon, very soon, and you'll see. I'll explain all of that going into that custom as that's being made. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I use it, is bigger chest and just more lifted. You can see how much taller she is too than both of them, really, but that's partly the legs. The other thing that you have to worry about when using this female beetle is that this head, the neck joint, this part is actually small. It's very small. It's just really small. It doesn't fit a modern head. It doesn't fit most heads, almost any head, for whatever whatever reason. The head on the female beetle is just smaller than everyone else, and so I had to actually be a little bit creative, and I took it out. I heated up the neck again, so you can see that Miss Marvel has a flesh tone piece in here as opposed to a green one that with female beetle would. I didn't paint that. That is the color of the plastic. So I heated it up on the female beetle, cut out the actual joint, and then there is the Jean Grey from Age of Apocalypse, the brand new one. So her upper torso, I sorry I don't have it handy, but the upper torso on that one is not very good for using for other customs, at least in my opinion. I will go over this again some other time, I'm sure, because I'm going to use it pretty readily. But that pin, I just took it right out and put it into the female beetle, because all of this is still the same size. It's just the ball is bigger and made for more modern figures. But yeah, that's all I did. I just cut it out and put it in here. I had to glue it back together, but that is what's going on with that. And lastly, as I get back to the actual full figure, the scarf. All right, and lastly, the scarf that's going around her neck is the same one that's on this specifically, this Miss Marvel from the Avengers game wave. You can use the original Miss Marvel too. It's the exact same scarf. I just removed the paint that is on this, like, you know, that orangish, reddish, whatever it's called, part of the scarf. Remove that paint, and then I repainted the entire thing just plain red. But this, again, since it's softer plastic, I use the Angelus leather paint red on that, so it's just straight up red. And then Mod Podge to seal everything on the entire figure. It's just matte finish Mod Podge all over every leg and all over the chest, the hair, the face, and so on. And to wrap up again with the head, is the same head that's on the classic Dazzler from the 70s. So I had to remove all of this paint, 100% acetone, nail polish remover, remove all of the paint, and put it over here. I repainted it to flesh tone so that everything would match with the stomach and the legs. So it's not the same tone as this. She's actually more pink than Carol is. And epoxy sculpt for the mask. Now, if you've been looking at her eyes this entire time and saying, man, her face is really messed up, I agree with you. I did not do a great job with that. I just had a lot of errors. I just did. It's just, I made mistakes. Mistakes were made, and I try to be a lot better than that with doing my my eye makeup. What happened was, I actually did a pretty decent job the first time around, but then my finger slipped on doing the, I think it was doing the iris on one of the eyes, and then it just made it too big. So I tried to do the other eye, and then I really messed up on that. Then I had to go back and try to cover it up with more white, and then it got too thick and globby and stuff like that, and it just snowballed basically on me. So I ended up just leaving it as is. I mean, doing the best I could to correct it, but normally my eyes would not look this thick, and that is poor. I also accidentally covered up her eyebrows because I did not want to do that with the epoxy sculpt, but it is what it is. So her eyebrows are covered with the mask, and then the lipstick is, I believe it's transparent red. It's the same kind of paint as the Model Masters. It's called transparent red. Usually I would use that for most red lips, and that's about it. Yeah, that's the whole thing. So for Carol, I did go as far as to make additional hands. I don't have them handy, pun not intended, but I did give her 2 fists and 2 open hands. So I do have posing options if I want her to punch, if I want her to energy beams or whatever it is. I can do all of that because I gave her swappable hands. But for my display, she has 1 fist, 1 open hand. As far as paint rub goes, there is a little bit of an issue that I had when I tried to put this together, especially here on this pin. Some of that paint came off. Just, it was really frustrating getting that in there. But for the most part, the paint rub isn't that big of a problem. Nothing of an issue down here on the leg, on the foot I should say. The knees are pretty good. Not really that big of an issue, but I did once, while I was again trying to put these pins in there, I had issue with that. So there's this white coming off of there. I think that's primer. Overall, everything in here is okay. That's on the inside. That's the white from the Dazzler. That's actually not primer. That's just unpainted. but you don't see that unless I spread them, so that's not a big deal. One weird thing that did happen though, I forgot about this. So her torso, again, the wobbliness in the hips, but her upper torso is from the female beetle, the lower torso is from the Dazzler, and they should fit, and they do. And she actually is quite tall compared to other figures, but her forward crunch is basically non-existent. She just doesn't bend forward at all. I don't know why that is, but her back crunch, she goes back a lot. Like that's a whole lot. I don't know why it's like that. It just doesn't do forward much, but back a whole lot. And I hope that's not the case for most figures, but I mean, it's totally fine, especially if you have her flying. So that's kind of wanted to see here. Like if you have her flying, she can put her head up pretty decently, and with this back being able to go up so much, you can get her flying pretty nicely. There's no peg hole in her back though, so that kind of stinks. So you might want to consider that if you're going to make one. Obviously, you don't have to use the same bust. You can do whatever you want, but she looks pretty cool with the back going as far back as she does, and then her head doesn't tilt up that much because the hair gets in the way, but this still looks really cool. So I dig it. And then the legs look fantastic. Absolutely love the way her legs look, the way the butt looks. I love the colors. Yeah, this looks really awesome. Alright, now for the comparison you've probably all been waiting for. We have my original Miss Marvel compared to the Captain Marvel, that's current costume, most recent Captain Marvel version, unless you count the time running out gray and black version, and then Miss Marvel as Warbird. I believe that's what this costume's called, the black lightning bolt suit. Just for reference, this side, there's two TV trays that this is sitting on. This side is a little bit taller than this side of the TV tray, but for the most part these two are on the same side, and the height difference, she is a little bit taller, just a little bit taller than this one, and that's why she should be a little she's actually kind of taller than this one, despite the fact that she's up higher on the TV tray here. But yeah, there's that. So like I said, I would love to have had this color blue on my original Miss Marvel, but I just didn't realize or had the desire to try mixing at that time, mixing paint to make a darker blue. But going forward, I've kind of figured some things out, and I do want to do that, but I didn't want to do it for this figure in particular. What's funny is these hands, I forgot to go over that. The hands themselves, I believe the open hands, I mean, they're just generic open hands. Almost all of the female figures have that. I'm going to say that they came from Female Beetle, because she had open hands, I'm going to guess. But the fists came from Emma Frost, so they used to be black. But look how small these fists were compared to the old fists that they used to use on all of these older body molds. So that actually looks really weird how small these hands are. And I've always said that the fists on the female figures nowadays are very, very small. But in comparison, yes, you can see the chests and all of that look a lot different. And so yeah, what's going to happen is I will eventually, well actually fairly soon, remake this Carol. I'm going to make two versions of it, really. Actually, yeah, the same version, but one with two head sculpts and a different one with one head sculpt. And it's going to be just a comic book version with short hair and either medium length hair or long hair, and then I'm going to make a second one that'll look nearly identical, but it will be a long hair version, and that's going to go on my Marvel vs. Capcom shelf, which, by the way, I will go over in that video that I'll be doing later this week of what that Marvel vs. Capcom shelf is looking like right now, because I haven't talked about it yet, and it's already up and running, and I will be making a Captain Marvel for that shelf. But this body, then, after I make the new Captain Marvel, I'm going to take this and start experimenting with it, because I haven't done anything with this body ever, and I have a few plans. And just last week, the Hasbro team announced that they're going to be remaking or re-releasing Classic Rogue, which uses the same body. So that gives me an opportunity to actually acquire more of these bodies, because these are hard to come by. They're very old, and I don't want to scrap them without having a specific plan. But if Rogue is going to be readily available, then I can use that and start making more figures using that body. Although it still will be, I like having different body types for different characters. So for me, I actually want Carol to look more like this and less like this. And yeah, so there are other characters I want to look like this, but I want Carol to be a little bit more slimmer looking, a little bit more muscular in the leg, and smaller, tighter butt. Yeah, because these have pretty big, wide butts, and I'm not against that, but for Carol, I don't want her to have that. So Rogue, I'm kind of okay with that. I actually kind of want Rogue and Carol to have similar bodies, because they're very, you know, they're enemies. You're not, I mean, they're friends, but they're enemies, but they're still friends, but they're still enemies. And they're very comparable, and I want them to have similar bodies. But if Hasbro is remaking Rogue, it'll be a lot easier for me to make other versions of Rogue using the same body that classic 90s Rogue has. And that's the idea. If I'm going to do multiple versions of a character, I want them to have similar, if not the same body, because why would it change from this to this, or from this to, you know, whatever they make nowadays for their bodies? I think it should be all the same. So although Carol has 2 of these, but they don't have this, and if they ever make this costume, they won't use this body. They won't. They'll use something like this. They probably will use something like this, actually, if I had to speculate. But that's one reason why I make this, because I don't want her to be shortchanged and look more like Blink. She should look more like this. Alright, one more comparison. We have movie Captain Marvel plus movie Minerva. And yeah, so the heights aren't all that different. Again, that pearl blue, so ended up, again, the pearl blue that I use on this, it should have a pearlescent sheen, but I used matte finish, so it actually brought it down to be more matte and less shiny. But when I am planning on first making not another version of this, but her in-game costume, where it's more blue and a little bit red down here, just like repainting this. I have an extra movie Carol to repaint, and I'm going to do that. So it won't be blue plastic, it will be everything painted. I'm probably going to use the same blue that I used here, but I won't matte finish it. It'll be more shiny. So that'll come relatively soon, again within the next couple months. I'm ready to do it. I really just need hair to give her that short haircut, and then that's it. And then I'm going to redo this. And then as far as Minerva goes, here's that. She's not going to change, but I do plan on, well, I won't say a plan, I'd like to do a comic book Minerva, which really doesn't look all that different from this costume. It's just, if I remember correctly, she's fully covered, so no legs out, no stomach. It'd just be the same color scheme and really the same kind of costume, and also the long scarf as opposed to the short scarf that she had in the movie. But I think that's it. I don't remember what her hair looks like off the top of my head, but yeah, it's gonna look more or less like this costume. So having some comic book villains for Carol would be fun. Anyway, we're done here. Thanks for joining me. Sorry for the long-winded explanations, but I thought this would be a good video to reference when talking about female Beetle and talking about her, the bust size and comparisons to the older versions and older female, like this one, and so on. But keep an eye out. I have another custom that is almost done. I have a few more things to tinker with it, and it's the other one that I was using the same blue for. Plus I am almost finished with a different custom. I really just got to finish the paint and put it together, and she'll be going up pretty soon. And like I said, the month end video will also be going up pretty soon. I just got to film it and talk about all the stuff that I've done over the last month that don't deserve its own video, because it would just be like a 2-minute video. Hey, I repainted this. Okay, bye. You know, stuff like that. So I will see you guys next time. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more custom talk. We can again, I walk you through everything that I do. If you have any questions, make sure you leave comments. If there's things that you would do differently or something like that. I use this hair, even though the comic book version has shorter hair, but this is close enough, right? I actually got the idea to use this hair and even make this custom by shopping for custom fodder on eBay, and then some person made their Captain Marvel, their Miss Marvel with that head, and I'm like, huh, I can do that. I can do that right now. So I just bought me a Dazzler and went ahead and did it. So yeah, more stuff on the way. Like, subscribe, comment. Make sure you go hit up my Twitch channel where I do live stream, twitch.tv/ninja_chortle. And that is all I do now. Actually, since the last video, I was doing gaming streams, but now all I do are work on my customs and work on my action figures. I don't stream anything else now. So if you're interested in hanging out, just chilling with me while I paint stuff and do sculpting work, come by the Twitch stream, and I will see you guys there. So see you soon.